Yeah, that might be a possibility. It may be that the Bonnie Doon is getting its water, like I don't know if it's
subsurface.
Well, it's got to have access to sewage and storm drains.
Exactly, runoff, gutters, or something.
I went on a tour in Lafayette. Did anyone else here go on that tour for the avocado orchards? He had a huge 5 or 7 acres of them. They were small trees. He hardly ever watered them. And it was a dry-looking hillside. He had some other things like Suriname cherries that looked half dead, so clearly he wasn't watering a lot. And they were pretty fruitful. It was in the Jill Steinberg East Bay.
Oh yeah,
I remember that guy.
Yeah.
Was it guy with the palm?
Is that
Yeah.
Gary Gray?
He has a palm nursery in Richmond too, but his, I mean, it was amazing. This huge hillside with lots of avocados and it's seemingly very little water. I was staggered.
You know someone that knows that guy and can verify?
Yeah, married Carol O'Vera at O'Vera Construction. The guy doesn't even need to work. Whatever he touches turns to gold.
Even his avocados fruit without water.
Yeah.
It's up on the hillside quite a bit.
It's up at the Lafayette Reservoir.
Oh, subsurface flow.
He's up super high.
And well, in like Guerrero, I mean, for like the epicenter, I mean, there's whole huge areas that are like avocado forests, and they don't get that much rainfall. I mean, it's not
Seasonal.
It's semi-arid.
Where is this?
In like Guerrero, I mean, like
Mexico.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like some of the wild
Michoacan.
avocados.
Oh.
There's probably potential.
Acapulco.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a lot of unexplored potential.
So our next slides are about planting and tree care. I don't know if that's too general or if people would like us to go over it.
Yes.
There's Freddie doing the work.
You're doing a good job with the camera. We try to plant our avocado trees above grade, so instead of digging a hole, we try to, if we don't have a mound of soil lying around, we scrape up a mound of soil and get the bottom of the root system up at least even with the natural grade of the land, so that we've got it on a significant mound, you know.
Are you trying to make 2 or 3 feet there?
I'm trying to get 2 feet
Is that for drainage?
for drainage, yeah. And
We're
then,
not in really clay soil. It seems like we do much better that way.
Well, I'm just wondering about the guy who's talking about burying a grafted plant really deep, or if you try and get it on the roots.
well,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's possible to do that if you want to make a really big mound, you know, or if you've got a hillside that you can do that. I mean, I wouldn't say that's impossible.
You can't get started and mound up the mound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your mound the same soil as your, native
Yeah,
soil?
we don't dig super holes or put a bunch of no fresh manure, nothing hot in the hole or in the soil. That's
But
just our
if you're
native ground.
But if your soil's really clayey, you might want to import soil to make your mound.
Yeah, if you scrape up your clay soil to make a mound, you'll have a mound of clay. And that's, they won't like it. So you can give clay soil, you can manufacture a nice draining mound that root system will grow through and will stay largely above.
What diameter?
You start with 3-4 feet, and then you build on it every time you mulch it. You just keep adding.
Yeah, we'll show that too.
Yeah, a couple times a year, 6 or 8 inches. But
So you can see here he's just mounding up, and there he's kind of making a volcano, so he can put the pot, the plant's roots in the middle. And so this is just a paper pot from our nursery. So he's going to put that in and tear away. Often it's really good when you plant an avocado tree to cut the pot away rather than try to tip it over, because the roots, they never have a really tough root system. It's not like an oak tree or something. And often if you flip it upside down, you'll end up breaking off pieces of the roots.
yeah, it's extremely bitter or brittle and non-fibrous. You damage the roots and the tree stall.
And there you can see that he's putting manure on the outside of the mound, like just kind of piling around the base of the tree. We have a cow, so we put the bedding from the cow. It has manure and straw. They love rotting organic mulch on the top. As many times a year as you can.
Yeah,
put
2
it
or
out
3
there.
times a year, if you can do that, both horse manure.
Yeah, and horse manure has been,
All right.
wait a minute. I thought I had to go- oh, yeah.
Oh, anyway, so we'll plaster the outside of the volcano with manure and then thick mulch over the top of that, maybe even at planting time, maybe a foot of mulch, with a lot of nitrogen underneath, so we're not sucking the nitrogen out of the soil. And then, once that's set up, we'll have a little bit of a saucer at the top, a depression that we can water into. And gradually that mound, we'll increase that mound by adding manure and mulch in layers a couple times a year. And so that grows with the drip line of the tree.
So you wanna set up a soil environment underneath the tree that is loose and draining, but that mulch will hold moisture underneath the tree. So it sounds like contradictory, but it's not really, you want a moist environment, but you don't want it standing in water.
And that, I mean, the avocado is peculiar. It really has a far-reaching root system. You don't want to be chintzy with your mound. You want to make an exaggerated mound. We found that on a young tree, on a 4 or 5 year old tree, the root system will find it if there's mulch, a path or something 10 feet beyond the drip line. It'll spread out. So
They're surface feeders, they're not really the taproot type of tree. I mean, I guess they go deep too, but they really want to work through that surface, and if you give them those layers, they just send their feeder roots through it, and makes them really happy.
yeah, so that does sort of have implications for watering. Like we initially water with, just puddle it in around soak around the depression around the tree itself and soak the root ball. But as that tree grows, its needs change, and that's not enough. So.
How do you have oak root fungus in your yard?
We do, yeah, we actually have Camelary now.
And they do okay?
Yeah, it hasn't killed the weekend tell. When we kill an avocado tree, it's usually some other.
Do you have gophers?
Yeah, we have gophers too.
Do you do anything about them?
We have
No basket.
we have cinch trouts, magamy trouts, black hole trouts, and those new ones that you.
But you're not planting in any.
I was gonna say roast them slowly. 250.
But they don't seem to bother the avocados. I think they're looking for that nice thick taproot.
That's our experience. We found that gophers vary, and you might have voracious gophers on a dry hillside where that's the most delectable thing. So I've seen people who tell me that gophers have killed the trees, but it hasn't happened.
I know squirrels, and they seem to go up and chew on the surface of.
They love the avocado. They'll eat them a lot greener than you would.
What about water on the trunk? It looks like you're getting a lot of water on the trunk.
We are, and we don't worry
That
about it.
doesn't,
Well, very nice. I wanted to say something else with your question about the oak rot fungus. So I feel like we use only organic methods, and our goal in keeping our trees happy is to create a really complex ecosystem underneath them. So we often will have mushrooms coming up through the duff, and I feel like that we use manure and the bedding, and it creates a really complicated and high population of everything under the tree, insects and worms and funguses, and I think that it makes it really difficult for any one fungus to take hold. Kind of like washing your hands with those antibacterial soaps, you get rid of everything, but it opens you up to one really bad pathogen to take hold.
Right, so that brings up root rot and the Phytophthora, the avocado root rot fungus. It seems like the new science are coming up with is that the less organic material you have in your soil, the more likely you are to have conditions that conducive to the root rot, to the Phytophthora. And so the whole era of the clean understory with avocado culture is dead. Even the commercial guys are talking about leaving the branches, their thinnings, the prunings, their leaves, everything, and adding mulch and manure.
And they even, I think, you see Riverside do a study where they recommended fresh horse manure, put that underneath the tree for fertilizer.
Right.
Surprised.
As well as calcium, yeah.
Can you still put gypsum?
We use gypsum, yeah. Gypsum's supposed to make the root cells less leaky, there's less points of attachment for the phytophthora.
It really has an amazing effect on clay soil.
Is that right? It's
Yeah,
softened.
it really, that combined with planting something in it,
Uh-huh.
really opens it up. It's like, make more like a sponge than something you make a pot out of.
Right. Is that your mulch photo?
Yeah, it was in the wrong place. Oh, there's our tree that's on one side of the fence and the cherry tree's on the other side of the fence. And they both do really well, except to where they come up above the fence. No, I guess the avocado's like it above the fence. The cherry's like it below the fence.
Yeah. Okay, so the placement, siting it in your yard, where do you want to put your avocado tree? You want to put it in the highest, sunniest, early morning sun spot that you have. And, I guess that's different from just the hottest point in your yard. You don't want to select a spot that is super hot in the afternoon summer sun. You want something that will get kind of east facing, so it gets the early morning sunrise, so that the cold mornings are short.
I thought I read someplace that that they're very susceptible to wind, so you wanted someplace that was sheltered from wind.
Absolutely
Right.
So
true.
what's more important, wind shelter or more sun?
We have to pick one.
Both, by all means.
You know, we have a little avocado nursery. We sell avocado trees, and one of the most popular varieties that's ordered from us is an Edrenal. And we had an Edrenal tree, beautiful Edrenal tree. It grew up, and then one day we came out and it was dead. And the wind had just snapped it off right at the graft junction. And somehow, some psychic ability of all of our customers knew that it was gone and that they should order Edrenal trees from us.
Yeah, so
Ever
there's our
since
mother
then,
tree,
we
dead on the
haven't had
ground.
any, and but yeah, they hate the wind. It's absolutely right. And the morning sun aspect is because cold is really bad for avocados, but worse than cold is long cold. Like the more those hours accumulate, the more damage your tree's going to see. So if you can situate your tree where it's going to get a little bit of warmth first thing in the morning, you can really decrease the amount of damage that will happen on cold winter night.
Right. Yeah. So another way to do that is also place it high in the yard as opposed to down in the depression where the cold air can accumulate really high, where the cold air can drain away from it. Several degrees difference sometimes between those yards. We couldn't get a picture of burning tires, but
I really like that.
Christmas tree lights, those are the old, I think they're 5-watt light bulbs. They're kind of, we put 5 or 6 of them at the base of of our younger trees. So that tree's just about outgrown.
But up here in this side of the hills, in the East Bay, and lots of places around here, it's unusual to have, even 32 is unusual. So I'm just trying to see what you say after I say that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. At 32 degrees, you don't need to protect your trees. You don't need Christmas tree lights. Christmas tree lights are for 25 degrees and colder.
So
And
do you protect all your trees or just the young trees?
all our trees are kind of young, so right now, all our young trees are protected.
So at what point will you stop using that method?
When the light bulb strings break.
1998. There was we got 19 degrees instead of
Well,
just 10.
it's December, yeah, 97.
Yeah, and so it's really nice to know that you could plug that in and you would not lose your tree. It would be ugly for a year, but the roots would be there and the graft would be there and it would come back.
Yeah, I mean, even 21 degrees or 19 degrees, the light bulbs might not be enough. If you have a good canopy, it might reduce it. But there are things you can do, like you can mound sawdust, coffee hulls, some kind of a light, bulky material up around the trunk of a tree. You can pile it up 3 feet high and save the graft and a foot of the graft, and let the entire upper canopy die in the 1 in 25 year, the 1 in the 50 year freezes, and you'll save your avocado trees. That tree, that canopy will die. The protected part of your graft will live, and that'll resprout vigorously the next year, and you'll have 2/3 of your tree back by fall.
Seen them do it, wire fencing
Yeah.
in a column and then fill it full of hay and wrap it with a tarp or something.
Yeah, really practical. It's a little bit extreme, but you kind of sometimes you get some notice when one of those events comes, when there's a Alaskan front dropping down, and it's going to be
I've tried using a kerosene lamp under a metal chair, and that, with the canopy above, it seems to help a few degrees.
A metal chair, you heat that metal chair up, and it spreads the heat. Yeah.
What? Nitrogen.
What?
Feeding nitrogen.
There you go. Feed it nitrogen in the wintertime, when they're like in the fall, before you go dormant, or before things get cold. Feed it up in September, November, so that your tree's in hot growth. And a hot growing avocado tree, a nitrogen charged leaf system is a lot more cold tolerant than a depleted chlorotic leaf system.
One of the things I do when we have freezing nights where I live is I take my orchids and I put them more or less in a circle, and I put a 5-gallon bucket in the center of it and fill it with water. Then I put an old tarp, and even the tarp isn't sealed well, but just some sticks to hold it up.
Wow.
And that 5-gallon bucket,
Right.
the whole bucket has to freeze before it stops putting off heat, and it won't get any colder than 32 degrees under there.
Right. So
And
how often is that cold that you can freeze a whole 5-gallon bucket worth?
I've never had it happen yet,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
but
That's almost as good as a kerosene heater.
yeah. And it's a lot cheaper, and if one bucket won't work, I'll tell you, 2, 3 might.
Yeah.
We gotta get a stand next time. Thanks for
I live in Bay Point, which is over by Pittsburgh, and I think we get colder over there in the winter than you do over here.
Yeah. Do you know what you get, what your lows are in the last couple of years?
God,
Well, from the name, it sounds like it must be on Suisun Bay, but then when
Right.
you get further inland, it's common to have frost in the morning all winter long.
Oh, yeah.
Almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people where I live, they take their orchids in, the minute that they see the, frost on the roofs,
Yeah.
they'll take them in, they'll put them in. I have never taken mine in. I leave them out all winter long.
Yeah.
And I've only,
Cymbidium?
Hmm?
Cymbidium orchid?
Cymbidiums, Phalaenopsis, epidendrums. I put them all under there.
Yeah, so that's great. That's a great advice. It's a cheap heater.
Well, it's an idea. It might work.
Oh.
What do you want to say? Do you have anything to say about nitrogen?
I just this morning read about it, so I don't have any practical experience. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, we've really seen it with ours. We found that, it's kind of the most counterintuitive thing. Every other fruit tree, the advice is never fertilize heavily in the fall or the late summer. You don't want to throw it into growth just when it's going dormant. You don't want to freeze that green wood. But with
For
avocado
citrus too.
trees,
I've heard both benefit from that.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Benefits from it too?
That's what I've read. I don't
Citrus
know that.
benefits from
Fertilization,
Okay.
not backing off. And like
Yeah.
you said, if it's weakened in chlorotic, that's more frost sensitive than an actively growing tree.
So I
Even though the
wonder-
softest wood may get burnt, the rest of it is much more vigorous or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wonder for evergreens, if it means that it's good to fertilize, and for deciduous, it should.
Well, it's obviously a completely different plant.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
one that drops its leaves and the one that holds its leaves, they're just completely different in terms of how they react to the weather. Otherwise, the citrus is not reacting to the winter essentially. A lemon tree will blooms 12 months out of every year.
Right.
But they'll freeze.
Sure they'll freeze. But I'm just saying, any advice that applies to a deciduous tree, you have to wonder if it also would apply to a tree that's not.
Yeah. Anyway, it works.
So here are some horror pictures. This is when we first grafted the ivacens over the stuff we had, and Well, you grafted in August probably.
Yeah, it was really late in the summer. It failed the first time, so it was, mid-August or early August when I finally grafted it. And it grew, 3 feet or 2.5 feet. Winter came, it got to 26, 25 degrees, and that was the bottom of the yard. It was the worst, coldest, it was the cold sump of the yard, and it just got fried.
But you can see that the stems are still green. It came right back. They seem to almost like being frost damaged. Then a ball is one that has, I think it has quite a bit of West Indian in it, and so it's pretty frost sensitive. And, it got hammered, but you can see they're just coming back really hard and fast. And within a couple of months, it was glorious again.
Yeah, avocados seem to really benefit from, restoring that ratio of big root system to small canopy. They don't do well when they're a canopy allowed to get really huge and the root system's knocked back. But the opposite seems like it makes them fire into big growth and make fruit.
What time of year is the best time to graft then?
April, May, I guess, after the frosts, and you got all summer to grow the scion up and get some size on it before it freezes.
Okay.
Yeah, because size is really the determining factor with cold hardiness too. The smaller wood just freezes. So often depending on how cold it is, the wood freezes down to, it starts with the tiniest wood and freezes to the bigger wood and stops at some point. So if you can get your trees big enough, they won't be in danger.
Unless you're frost tree or have a greenhouse. Then you got a lot more options.
That's true, yeah.
So, are we done talking about winter stuff? Because I thought we would talk a little bit about regrafting. Because a lot of people say, oh, I planted a seed in my backyard 20 years ago and it's 60 feet high. What should I do? It's never made a single fruit.
Easy recipe. Just get your chainsaw out.
Seriously.
Don't hit the neighbor's fence. No, cut it down and stump it to 2 feet high and let it resprout. And it will resprout these vigorous suckers after a couple months. Once they get that tall, you can regraft them. They grow tremendously fast.
But there's a couple of important things to do. One is to protect them from the birds and anything that might land on it. We've lost a lot of grass from birds saying, oh, that looks like a nice little landing spot, and they'll land on the new graft and snap it off. So we usually put a safe way bag.
Yeah, that protects the birds, but I think super crucially is sunburn too. The sunburn, the sun hitting the parafilm magnifies it and will fry the wood and kill it. If you don't protect your grafts the very minute you finish them, they can't tolerate very much heat at all under that parafilm cover. So I put a plastic bag with holes cut in the top for venting, and I'll staple it a couple times so that it doesn't blow off in the first windstorm. And then that acts like a little diffuser and it makes the sun less intense, and that saves the wood. Yeah.
And what kind of grafting style do you
We'll
use?
show you in a...
Yeah, I like to use a cleft graft. That's easy. A rind graft works as well.
Cleft or what?
A rind.
But then the other thing you have to be really careful about is to bud it. Because you've got that big tree, you've cut it all back, and that tree is just panicking and it wants to send up shoots. And avocado trees are incredible. I don't know why they have so many shoots, but they do. And you have to knock every other one off. And
They're
so
smart. They favor their own, and they will divert growth into their own shoots and away from your graft. So if you have competition from that tree down below, the graft will die oftentimes. The shoots take off.
So you can't be lazy about it.
Yeah.
It won't stop your graft from going.
Yeah, but we've never had that problem with grafting apples or pears. You can put a graft anywhere on an apple or pear or plum tree. But avocados are really smart.
That's our last slide.
Is it really? Oh, jeez.
What's that blue optic?
Oh, that's one of the Christmas tree lights in the background.
Do you have a question?
Yes, you said cleft graft. What was the other type of graft that you?
A rind graft. You know, cleft graft we do on green wood, on supple green wood, but if it's a bigger branch, you know, maybe an inch in diameter or something, or larger, we'll slice down the rind, the bark,
Like a T-bud?
and open it up, yeah, and then it's kind of like a T-bud, but you do a T-bud
bark?
at the end of a branch.
Bark graft?
It's more like a bark wrap.
That's what it
Rind
is.
graft is a bark graft.
Same thing.
True.
I'm sorry.
wonder if you have any advice on, I have a few, big, well, they're like 5-year-old avocado trees that are maybe 8 feet tall that I have to move. Is there any way to successfully move an avocado tree? One has a lot of avocados on it.
Wait for them to ripen.
I have to get them out of the
Pick them.
place by the end of the year.
Oh, really?
I think you've gotta just plant another rootstock and just move the wood over. I don't know if you can dig them up.
Yeah, I bet you could dig it up if you cut the tree back entirely, almost to the ground, and move the root ball, and you'd damage the root ball, but if you had a little bit of green growth, the balance might be good enough for it to be green growth. But I wouldn't count on being able to save the tree with ripening fruit on it. I doubt you could do it. Yeah.
You mean cut it now, wait till it sprouts a little, and then move it?
No, I would cut it and move it immediately.
Have you guys ever tried putting multiple kinds of avocados onto one rootstock?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult just for that effect where it wants to fight. If you do it all at the same time, it works. And if you cut a tree back and it's sending shoots out vigorously, like this one, you can't see the whole tree, but we cut that. It was an Ettinger tree, and we chopped it way back, and we had a bunch of different branches on it, and we grafted the different things onto it, and that works really well if you do it simultaneously. Yeah, sometimes we buy a Zatano, for instance, and we wait for it to get branches, and we'll chop them all off and put 3 things on.
A couple of questions. If you have a small lot and you don't think you can really manage with a tree that's more than about 8 feet, could you imagine it working long-term to be pruning an avocado tree severely every year to that size and still expect fruiting?
If you're growing a reed. If you're growing a reed, yeah. A bacon, no.
A bacon, no?
A bacon, no. Yeah, I mean, it would be hard.
I do it with a hoss every year, and since it's fairly low and I don't put a lot of water on it, it seems to be okay.
How-
I've got to cut it now.
How big is it?
I've been keeping it between 7 and 8, and right now it's about 10 and a half, and I haven't pruned it back yet this year. And I'm gonna cut it very soon, now that I
Yeah.
can see all the little avocados.
Yeah. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
My second question was, I've killed a whole bunch of avocados, first in North Berkeley and then in El Cerrito, and the soil was
Join the
very
club.
heavy.
No, go ahead.
The soil was very heavy clay, and in El Cerrito, after the first ones died, I built a 2-foot tall mound and mixed in a lot of stuff with the native soil, and they died anyway. Is it hopeless to even consider growing? Any ideas?
How about a raised bed? How about
Well,
a more expansive raised bed and with good drainage off the bottom?
So I have some raised beds I planted now. I wasn't sure if it was even worth trying an avocado in it after my.
Well, I would sure try it. I mean, I don't see why not unless there's something else killing them. You know, I mean, I haven't seen your mounds or what you're doing to raise them up.
So if one of the avocados almost died in the ground, and then I built a small raised bed and moved it, and it died immediately, would there be whatever fungus was going on move with it, so that even in good condition it would still die? Any thoughts?
Maybe, but it didn't necessarily have Phytophthora. It could have been suffocation that killed it too, just downright suffocation. It might have Phytophthora, but it might not. I would
Keep trying.
If it were Phytophthora, how would you identify it?
I don't know. I'd probably send it to him. I don't know. I wouldn't.
Send it to the master gardeners.
Die
That's what I
back at
do.
the top, die back at the top of the tree, and basically a recession of of the growing part of the tree.
What I would do is I would cut a branch off, a nice branch that showed some green and some dying, and then I would go down and actually cut off a piece of root, and I'd do it the Friday night before the first Saturday, and I would take it to the sick plant clinic and show it to Ann. And she might not be able to identify it as Phytophthora. Robbie used to take your sample and plate it and see what it was, but I don't know if she'll do that, but she'll at least give you some advice.
That's
Yeah,
at the
that would be
UC
great.
Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
At UC Botanical Gardens, and she'll want to see a branch with dying and good stuff on it, and she'll want to see a good chunk of root that's fresh.
It's the first Saturday of each month.
And I would take it to the master gardeners too.
Yeah.
UC folks, if the master gardeners that are on the hotline can't answer it, they send it up to the plant pathologist and let they have a good sample.
And we've had some luck with reversing what we think is Phytophthora, with just cutting the tree way back and then putting manure underneath it. Raw horse manure or cow manure, really mulching it up well.
Yeah, wood gypsum, wood chips, manure. Just changing the conditions. So we feel like, Phytophthora responds to different conditions. If you have raw ground, I don't know about your El Cerrito situation, but if it's heavy clay, if there's some way you can incorporate more organic material in, more wood, make an environment where there's more wood rotting bacteria that will defend against the Phytophthora. So you can change the conditions of your situation to select against, that root rot.
Does your neighbor have a lawn?
How would you approach topping a 30-foot tall seedling tree?
In pieces.
Chainsaw?
Yeah.
Well, in other words, I'd like to get the tree lower just to make it more manageable for getting the fruit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would do is look for a lower branch, a lower limb that I could drop crotchet down to, basically cut off the high extension, leave a small part of the tree that was lower, have that take off, and count on that putting out new growth down below, and count on essentially eventually training those new shoots into your tree and gradually cutting away the old.
Over
trunk.
several years.
Yeah, over several years. It wouldn't take very long.
Yeah, a few years.
In the back?
This one, 10 years, finally grew for first time.
Wow, worth
And
the
they
wait
turn-
though, huh?
they- What happened is I was so excited, but then they start turning black, then drop off.
Be patient. Some
Maybe it's
more.
right.
It's soft, it's kind of spongy.
Is it a seedling?
No, this is just baby bacon, avocado. I have one
A
left
bacon
now.
avocado.
I got one left, that's green. All the rest of it just turned black. And
Yeah.
have you ever seen anything like that?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, of course. I mean, that's a lot of times that's improper pollination. It was self-pollinated, and so they select against that. They
So
sort of,
how do I prevent it from happening?
I don't know. Do you have other pollinators around?
No, I have
Pollinate.